What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Blitz Sports Media here. My name is Ryan Linkler. Today, we are breaking down the five quarterbacks who are under the most pressure entering the 2025 NFL season. Now, a lot of these players vary from guys that are on their second contracts to guys on their first contracts and still looking to find their footing in the NFL. Whoever it is, these guys have to find a way to perform this season, or their outlook is going to change and they might not have a starting job heading into next season. Obviously, the criteria for each of these guys will be a little bit different, but ultimately, all these guys are under a heavy amount of pressure to succeed during the season. Now, some of them might have more talent than others to succeed, but they need to at least show these signs of progress moving forward, or they could be stuck in mediocrity or even worse heading forward in the NFL. Let's hop right in this list and get to our first quarterback who is under the most pressure heading into next season. Our first quarterback on this list is Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Kyler Murray has been a quarterback that, after the big extension, hasn't necessarily elevated his team or his performances to the level expected in the amount of money that he is getting right now. Murray last season had 3,851 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, with a 93.5 passer rating. Obviously, we know his rushing upside is still there, but it is steadily decreasing over the last few seasons. His performance in 2024 earned him a PFF grade of 82.1. Just another year for Kyler Murray. The Cardinals went 7-10. Obviously, this is more of a retooling year for the Cardinals at their really rough season the year before. But Kyler Murray continues to be in that category where he's around quarterback 14 to 18 on a yearly basis. Doesn't necessarily showcase the consistent performances that we expect of some of the top players at the position and the amount of money that Kyler Murray is being paid in Arizona right now. And it has me concerned. The Cardinals did a lot this offseason in terms of the draft, and I really like what they did because the defense was one of the bigger problems for this team. They went out and got Walter Nolan and Will Johnson, probably the best combination of the first two-round picks that I've seen in the draft. Then you go and add Jordan Birch and Cody Simon, Denzel Burke, three players I also really like as well. They do still have other problems on this team. I think that outside of James Conner at the running back position, they could have used more depth. At wide receiver, you already have Marvin Harrison Jr., and then you have Trey McBride at tight end. The offensive line is okay, but it improved last season from the year before. So the talent is there for Kyler Murray to take a step, to be the guy that carries a team that isn't necessarily, the top tier talent in the NFL to the playoffs. We saw last year where they were on track at some points and then ultimately kind of collapsed towards the end of the season. I am expecting that Kyler Murray either has a year where we look at him and, say, hey, Kyler Murray carried an average team to the playoffs. This guy's a good quarterback. He is well worth the type of contract that he deserves right now. But if Kyler Murray has another season where the inconsistencies show he can't, elevate the team that's around mid-level talent to the playoffs and him have a successful year, I'm very concerned that this is not worth the lucrative extension that the Arizona Cardinals paid him a few off seasons ago. Our next player, Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers. Young was an incredibly I don't even know how to describe his 2024 season. It was, 2023 Bryce Young to start the year, got benched, watched Andy Dalton ball out with the exact same roster, and then Bryce Young became a different player when he returned to the starting role. Finished with an 83.2 PFF grade over a 10-game stretch to close out the season. Had a 2,400 passing yards last year, 15 touchdowns, and 14 games played. We all know he really struggled out of the gate, but ultimately figured it out towards the end of the year, and everybody was extremely excited about, Bryce Young finally found his footing in the NFL. The Panthers have a ton of money in the offseason. They have draft capital. They're going to go make this team around Bryce Young, and it is still a make-or-break year for the first overall pick. Now, they did give up a ton of draft capital to go get Bryce Young, so I don't necessarily think that even if he has a bad year this year, this is the year that Bryce Young is out as the starter as the Carolina Panthers, but it definitely is a nail in the coffin for me on my end, determining whether Bryce Young can be a starting caliber quarterback in the league. So this offseason, they did everything they needed to basically go and add players. They had a ton of cap space, and they tried to spend that money. They went out and got Tershawn Wharton. They re-signed J.C. Horn. They added some other defensive pieces like Travion Mooring as well to try to improve that unit that really struggled last season. They added Rico Dowdle on the offensive side of the ball, but that's about it in the free agent side of things. In the draft, we all know that they got Ted McMillan from Arizona, giving Bryce Young hopefully a true wide receiver one, and they still do have Adam Thielen, some young pieces like Jalen Coker, Xavier Legette to work with Bryce Young that I really like as well. And then they went out and had two edge rushers and Princely Umanalen, and then Nick Scorton from Texas A&M that will help that defense out as well. The addition of Ted McMillan gives Bryce Young a true number one wide receiver. They have the rushing game with Chuba Hubbard. They have a solid offensive line. Like, this team is now built for Bryce Young to have consistent, sustained success on the offensive side of the ball. I'm not going to go as far and say the defense will be consistently good in 2025, but the offense has enough talent that Bryce Young should be able to perform like he did in the back half of 2024 into 2025. And ultimately, he needs to perform like that if he wants long-term stability and a contract extension from the Carolina Panthers. Our next player here, Tua Tagovailoa for the Miami Dolphins. Now, Tua's probably been on the most pressure list every single year of his career, it feels like. Tua is always under a ton of scrutiny because of the injuries, the lack of performances, and the lack of high-level plays we see out of him when he is on the field. Last season, the Dolphins had an abysmal season, did not live up to the expectations after a playoff berth the year before. Tua had a mediocre season, playing in 11 games, throwing 19 touchdown passes, had a 100 passer rating with a 72.9% completion percentage. As long as him and Mike McDaniel are tied to a T, Tua is always going to have a high passer rating and a very high completion percentage in the offense that he's playing in. The lack of a run game, though, for this Miami Dolphins offense last season was the biggest problem, with Tua's stats taking a little bit of a hit and the offense taking a hit as well. They had no interior push on the offensive line, and now with Teron Armstead gone, the concerns definitely grow a little bit. So I'm very concerned that Tua Tagovailoa is going to have to take a bigger role as the Miami Dolphins quarterback. I think Devon Achane will improve his efficiency slightly from last year, and that running game will be a little bit better. But who knows if Tyreek Hill is going to for sure be around this year. There have been some question marks about that. We saw outside of him and Jalen Waddle, it's a little bit inconsistent at that wide receiver position for the Dolphins, and I'm not necessarily sure that the Miami Dolphins defense is going to be improved as well. They did draft Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips, who will be really good interior presence for them, but the defense looks like it's going to be a middle tier unit heading into the season. With injury concerns being a main factor and him being on a massive contract, it just seems like even if he does overperform this year compared to what he's done in his career, it still feels like it when Tua is not on the field, this team is not as good, and he's just not available and making it worth the Dolphins' money. Ultimately, Tua needs to step up and be more of a big-time player that elevates his team, not just the guy that's along for the ride and riding Mike McDaniel's scheme to the next level. So I think Tua needs to take that step forward this season for us to view him differently, and if he doesn't, I think it's going to get hot whether this Miami Dolphins team rebuilds or retools next year. Our next player here is probably the most well-known player under pressure heading into next year. It's Anthony Richardson for the Indianapolis Colts. One of the lowest graded starting quarterbacks last year according to PFF, was benched last season as well, finished with more interceptions than touchdown passes, and had a completion percentage below 50. That's about as bad as it gets as a starting quarterback, but we know AR has that rushing ability as well that helped the Colts, be in playoff contention once again this season. He is just not a passing quarterback right now, and it's nowhere near where he needs to be a long-term answer at the quarterback position. The Colts this offseason brought in competition with Daniel Jones on a one-year contract. I fully expect that it is a real quarterback battle for the Indianapolis Colts, as we've seen Danny Dimes take a team to the playoffs that wasn't overly talented, and he's proven that he is a veteran quarterback that can actually complete a pass. I can't say the same thing for Anthony Richardson. Richardson needs to go back to the lab, redevelop his mechanics, and hopefully we see better signs of things in training camp in the preseason between AR hitting easy throws and not just overthrowing receivers, because this Indianapolis Colts cannot work the way it's supposed to in Shane Steichen's scheme if AR is not completing the passes he should. I really like what this team did, though, in free agency. Like Charvarius Ward, Cam Bynum, they went out and draft Tyler Warren, JT Tuimoloau, and some other good players. I think DJ Giddens is a sleeper as well. Like, they have the talent in Indianapolis to win. Now, it's just on Anthony Richardson. Can Anthony Richardson take a step forward as a passer? Can he show more leadership skills? I mean, him tapping out of a game after a run was crazy last year. Richardson is under a ton of scrutiny and a ton of pressure heading into the season, and no quarterback faces as much of a chance of losing their starting role as quick as possible in 2025 than Anthony Richardson. So he has a long ways to go to prove himself as an NFL caliber quarterback. Our final quarterback here is Trevor Lawrence for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Lawrence has had an up and down NFL career at this point. We've seen Lawrence be touted as a up and coming riser And then the last few seasons, it feels like Lawrence has taken a step back, and it's been partly due to the lack of coaching of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Doug Peterson's scheme grew old. The talent around Trevor Lawrence was not necessarily great in terms of the defense and offensive line side of things. And then, you head into this year, you get a fresh offensive coach in Liam Cohen, who was part of Baker Mayfield's resurgence, has some experience with Sean McVay as well. That'll be a big boost to Lawrence, who looks to improve on his passing numbers for the first time in a few seasons, and he struggled with injuries last year as well. I think the Jaguars going out and having the draft like they did, where they add a guy like Wyatt Millum on the offensive line, they got at a center late that I actually think is a sleeper in Jonah Minam from Southern Carolina, a really solid player as well. And then you get a guy like Travis Hunter as well that's going to make things really easy as a quarterback, having Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter running routes for you. You have a solid backfield mix of Bashal Tutin, Travis Etienne, and Tank Bigsby. This team is completely reloaded in terms of offensive talent, and I think that's a great thing to see when you have an offensive-minded coach like Liam Cohen heading it and knowing what to do with these pieces. I really like that for Trevor Lawrence, and I really like him to have a bounce-back year. The biggest concern for me, the defense looks really shaky heading into next year. The Jaguars team might not necessarily be super competitive, but I expect their offense to be better this season. And if Trevor Lawrence is not able to take a team that has, the talent that this Jaguars offense does heading into the season, it's going to start raising a lot of question marks whether or not Trevor Lawrence deserves that massive contract the Jaguars paid him a few seasons ago now. So Lawrence is another quarterback that I'm watching that's under massive pressure heading into next season. Those are the 5 quarterbacks that are under the most pressure heading into the 2025 NFL season. Let me know what you guys think. Which quarterbacks are under the most pressure heading into next year? Ultimately, though, I think all 5 of these guys have different criteria as to why they're under pressure and the reasons why they made this list. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button for more Blitz Sports Media content, and I will catch you guys next time.